Welcome to the Blueprints podcast. I'm Isabelle here with Michael today, and we're going to talk about the blueprint for getting out of shame and fear and into peace, joy, and love.
I'm super excited to be here and talk about this topic with you today.
Yeah. Well, I want to start off. I know there's a book that's been really influential in your journey along the way, and it's called The Gap Gain by Dan Sullivan. And I wondered if you could give us just kind of an overview of that book.
Well, Dan originally wrote the original Gap Gain book, but then he also co-authored with Benjamin Hardy. So it's an excellent read. You need to get a copy. This has got to be in your library. But I was first introduced to this concept through Dan Sullivan, a coach of mine. And if you haven't heard of him, look him up. He's an amazing entrepreneurial coach. But I would say most entrepreneurs and all people battle with this idea of struggling and living down in these mindsets and comparisons, and the Gap Gain just totally obliterates your mind. When you go through this process and you start using this tool, it's just an amazing tool.
Yeah, and I think the key that you said there is the comparisons key. I mean, that is where a lot of fear, shame, those lower level emotions and energy states really come in, right? Is when we start to compare.
Yep. So for me, when I first came across this concept, there's a little exercise, a worksheet that Dan ran us through. And it really starts with thinking back to when you started something. So it doesn't matter what it is, but in this case, it was it was custom built. And we were 15 years into the journey, and it was like I started at zero. Everybody starts at zero, no matter what goal you're trying to do. Everybody starts at zero, right?
Yep.
And they might have a goal of being, 10 million or 1 million or whatever the goal is. And then so many years in, you're now at this place. So let's say 15 years in, your goal was 10 million and you're at 1.5 million. And what this allows you to do is see that you're comparing yourself against the ideal. So the ideal is 10 million and you're not there yet on paper. And so when you wake up in the morning, your thoughts are all revolving around, I'm at 1.5 million and I'm trying to get to 10, I want to get to 10. And when you're in that mindset, you're often casting judgment on yourself. So you end up being your biggest critic. And the Gap Gain really is a tool to help get you out of this. And I'm telling you, it's magical. Like in the classroom, doing this exercise together with a few other people can really change your mindset overnight and get you back into living back in that moment when you first started your business. And you're like, I can't wait to do this. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But along the journey, we find ourselves hitting roadblocks. We have to break through ceilings. And really our mindset is so important in that process. And that's what this tool will help you with. Sure.
So there's the workshop that you can do, which you did at one of Dan Sullivan's events, right? Then there's the book that you can actually read, I didn't know there was 2 books. So there's an original one and then there's one with...
Well, Dan writes a book a quarter. So he writes books specifically to entrepreneurs. They're super... one a quarter. I mean, it's crazy. I think Dan recently just turned 80, but he's committing to writing one new concept, one new book a quarter. And then those books end up becoming like the tools that we use at our quarterly workshops that we go to. So
that's amazing that he's committed to writing that much.
Exactly.
I mean, at the age that he's at too.
Yep. And there's, entrepreneurs love pictures. And so in his books, there's great little illustrations, and the Gap Gain illustration is really one that, when you see it and you understand, like, okay, I started down here. If you think of like a box down at the bottom, this is where I started at. And then the next circle up is where you're at today. So let's say that's 15 years in, that you're at 1.5 million, and your goal was to get to 10 million. So then so that distance between where you're at today and that $10 million, so that 1.5 million, so you got an $8.5 million gap right there. If you are sitting at 1.5 million and that's what you're looking at, that leads to shame and fear and disappointment and
anxiety, worry.
Yeah. Working crazy hours, not taking care of yourself, being, a lot of unhealthy entrepreneurs, you're trying to force everything, in your business. And so basically doing a little switch, it's still the same thing. You still have the goal,
Hmm.
but instead of comparing yourself to that 10 million, what you do is so here's where I'm at today. I'm at 1.5 million, and you look back to where you started. So it's a little twist. And so you look back at where you started and you start counting, you get into gratitude. You're like, man, like I've made it this far. And then you think back, oh, I made it through the Great Recession, the 2008, if you were in business then, that we were. I was a couple years into business and it was a major setback, right? The
Yep.
way we did business before that was totally different. I knew in business, I had to restart a lot of things. I had to figure things out just to survive. And so, man, we made it through that. So then you start looking back and you say, to get to this place where we're at today, I've overcome a lot. And you start getting back into gratitude, and you really start increasing your happiness in the moment.
Mm.
And simultaneously, you're not getting rid of that goal. It's still there. You're actually begin to live in that goal today versus trying to get there.
Yeah, and just shooting and going in overdrive. I mean, I know for me, this has been a really big mindset shift too. I tend to be, perfectionist, and I set my goals and my visions and my targets, and it's like I can quickly get into a space of, fear or like lack for not hitting those.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's such a powerful tool, like you said, to look back at where you've come. And then for me, what's been even more powerful is to really start to list those specific things that I've gained along the journey, right? The experiences that I've gone through, the new tools that I've learned.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's probably similar to what's done in the workshop a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it really comes down to it's a mindset shift. And what's Thomas Jefferson's one of his famous quotes?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. So they talk about this in the Gap Gain book, and it's a really interesting perspective, because what Thomas Jefferson was talking about had truth to it, but the pursuit of something is never ending, so you'll never have it. So the flip of it is, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But how about the happiness is now? And that's what the gain does, is it puts you back into a mindset of having that happiness today, because you're in gratitude as you look back over the years and you see how much you've accomplished. And then you still have that ideal, that horizon line, the big picture goal that you're going after. And so you start realigning your plans to get there, and you do it on a quarterly basis instead of an annual basis. And you start putting in some of these little tools in to really help get you and keep you in the gain. But we're all human beings, and no matter how long you've practiced this, you're going to go back into the gap. It's going to happen. You're going to get triggered. Something's going to go wrong in the business. But the faster we can recover and get back into the mindset of, I'm in the gain, look how far I've come, I am happy, I am joyful, I am peaceful, I am loving, when we start getting back into the I am thinking mindset, it really puts us back into the gain. And so, as hard as we might strive and push ourselves, you're really working against the whole system. When you really start to surrender and let go, and you look at your horizon line, you're like, yes, that's still really important. And yes, you start visualizing and seeing what you're going to have, what it's going to be like today. It puts you right back into the excitement.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just feel the excitement when an entrepreneur starts a new business. He's got all of these, or he or she's got all of these great ideas, or when you started a new job or a new position, or you got promoted, or, whatever it is, like there's going to be a point in time when you had expectations that you were going to be further along than you are. And then the idea is you stop measuring yourself against that place.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, this concept of gap gain. And it really is a continual pursuit. One thing that I think of and that I've experienced in my life is, I started working at Custom Builts and part-time on the phones and getting into HubSpot or CRM and learning all the processes and systems, and started watching videos and understanding more about marketing and things like that, right? And really, that's where my passion started, was educating myself and watching videos and taking certifications and all this stuff. And I remember when I started full-time in the marketing manager role, it was I was over my skis for sure. I felt that I was over my skis, right? I felt
Mhm.
that I'm stepping into this role that there's, big expectations, like big milestones that we're going to hit and we are hitting. And I don't know that much about marketing. I mean, I know enough about it to do it,
Yeah.
but there was so much that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And the gap gain was so helpful for me in that process because
Yeah.
instead of focusing on what I didn't know,
Yeah.
I focused on what I did know and I focused on what I could go and learn.
Right. Right.
And it helped me so much because I mean, I remember it was like in May that I started full time in the role and it was like learning things like SEO. That's a very common marketing word,
Yeah.
search engine optimization. It's like I jumped into this role and I was like, wait, remind me what SEO is. Like I just was like, what is this? And so, I mean, now today I can, tell you about all of that. But like sometimes we make these big commitments and we jump into things that we don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And if we focus on what we don't know how to do and we focus on our lack, it's a downward spiral.
Right. Right.
But if we can get into that space where we can focus on, here's what I am doing, here's what I'm learning,
Right.
it's just,
Yeah.
it flips the script.
Yeah. And context is really important too when you think about the year that you took over at our marketing as a leader of marketing at Custom Built. It was 2022. So we all remember what happened in 2020 in the home residential remodeling market. In a lot of markets, I mean, bikes. You couldn't find a bike. You couldn't find a car. I mean, there was a COVID boom, right? It happened.
Yes.
There was also a manufacturing issue that caused a lot of backlog and things like that. But beyond that, there was stimulus money and there was people at home and they were transitioning to working. How many people work at home today? So there was so much work that was getting flooded into the market.
So many people wanted to be outside. And so having a nice outdoor living space where they could be outside but be at home was really important.
Right.
So decks and things like that really boomed.
But that same year that you took over the marketing, we hired a company. We made a big investment, right?
Yeah, we did.
And that investment was like not something that was we were gonna see like a Google ad word where you're gonna get instant results, right? Let's talk a little bit about that because I think it's a very interesting evolution. And so simultaneously, 2022 was probably about the COVID peak.
Right.
And then things really, you were taking over.
As they started kind of going down.
We were starting to see in June of that year
a downturn in leads and interest and that kind of thing, website traffic.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean,
it was kind of going back to pre-COVID normalities.
It was because we did see that in our numbers too when we would report. But yeah, I mean, we started a coaching program for marketing. And so honestly, for me, and this is something I've learned is like, there's many different ways to be educated. There's the traditional route, go to college, get educated, right? But then there's also pick up your phone and learn on YouTube, take certifications through Google, through HubSpot, through trusted sources, right? And then there's the one that, I mean, I've really gained a lot from, which is hiring a coach and doing a coaching program.
Yeah.
So we invested in a coaching program for marketing specifically, really focused around creating content and creating videos. And so I jumped in with 2 feet and I was like, really? Like I either go all in on this or we don't do it. And it was a vision you had for several years, right?
Yeah. Going back to 2016 and.
I mean, I say right, but I know it was a vision you had for a long time.
Been in there for a long time. But when you look at it again, like if you measured yourself against results only, we saw a downtick in our leads, and this program was going to take us, at least a year,
9 to 12 months to even see any results.
Yeah, but even that was like we're just getting a grasp around how to even implement the program, getting right people in the right seats and things like that. So to really see a return was going to be a year plus out. Mm-hmm. So as the market is changing, correcting, going back, we were investing all this time and energy and money into something that maybe we weren't seeing results on. Mm-hmm. And if you focused on that, you probably would have quit. Right?
Yeah.
Where the gap
100%.
gain gets you back into the gain, gets you back into looking like here's where we started. Here's what I knew when I started. Now with these 4 different coaches that we were working with, we were able to implement a system and a process and begin our journey of creating content.
Right. And really not just about creating content, but going back to just educating homeowners on the remodeling process so that they're more confident in their journey, whether it's with
Absolutely.
custom build or not, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I'm super passionate about that now, but yeah, you're totally right. If I had been focused on the results, they,
Could have been
it would have been a really bad headspace to be in.
right. Right.
But I mean, honestly, thanks to the Gap Gain, your coaching, or the coaches that we were with, I mean, they told us up front, this is a serious investment of
Yeah.
time and resources, and you're not going to see a return for a while.
Yeah. So I think that, just as we begin to wrap this conversation, The Gap Gain is a book that you definitely want to read. I would recommend getting the version. It's with Dan Sullivan, and it's written by Benjamin Hardy with Dan. Great read, fast read, and you'll just gain so much from this book. It will, if you embrace it and begin to use the tool, it will change your mindset. It will change your world.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing that I think we'll always say on this podcast is that 1 degree of change can make a big difference.
Right.
So read the book, but even listening to this podcast today and really understanding the concept of where you're at today, don't focus on the goal that you want to be. I mean, it's good to have your vision. You need to have that to shoot for, but really look back and see where you've come and be in gratitude.
Yeah. And tying back into the name of our podcast is Blueprints. And there's so much in a blueprint that has to be built out as it's going along, and these different tools along the way. When you look at a blueprint, I mean, it's a picture of the finished product, but it doesn't tell you necessarily how to do everything to get there. So this is a great tool to add into your tool pouch, especially as an entrepreneur or somebody that's wanting to grow in their career and bring more peace, love, and joy in their day and to their family and into their businesses. This is a transformational concept.